Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Similarly Different. On today's episode, I have a friend who I actually know longer than she was aware, and I had to bring her back to the memory of it. I'm so excited to tell you guys all about that story, but she is a choreographer, she is a movement coach, she was an artist, signed to a label, and I'm sure so many other things in between, during, and that she still wants to be. But I have a story to share with you guys about her. I want to tap into whether you are a mom, whether you are a woman in general, in your 30s, in your 20s, if you've been in entertainment. I think this is going to be a great conversation. I have the one, the only, Miss Brinn Nicole here.
Thank you for that introduction.
Of
Hi,
course.
Mama. I'm so happy to be here with you. You've also lived a million lives.
I know.
And now being on your podcast is a new transition from how we've met, or how I've known you from what you were when we first met, that you had to remind me of.
Yes, it's so funny. The other day we were at my friend Leanne's house, and I had told her this story I think 2 or 3 years ago, but I didn't tell her in depth. And I used to be in the music industry, and Brinn was known as the heels teacher, movement coach, and I actually got your referral, now thinking about it, from Tim. So I had asked him about 3 different people, and at the time my neighbor was filming every single dancer you could think of, ended up creating a dance studio or a production studio. And
Both.
Yeah, a production dance studio. And I had asked him, I was like, I need a movement coach for the 16-year-old that we're developing, and we're going to get signed to Warner. And he gave me 3 names, and Brinn was one of them. And she came to our office in Studio City, met with me and my partner at the time, and we interviewed her. We ended up going with another person due to his fear. And
We didn't go with her, but anyway.
We didn't go with her only because his fear was that she was a sensual dancer, and they were scared that the 16-year-old was going to age a little bit older. Which, honestly, I think that's just like a male's perspective, when really you just have to get comfortable with your body. It doesn't mean you're going to turn into sexuality.
Yeah, and I know appropriate
exactly
moves to put on
But
different
in
ages.
that meeting, she actually shared with me that she used to be signed to either Atlantic or Epic as a teenager. What label were you signed to?
No, okay, so as you were saying that, I was like, actually...
Or Capitol? Was it Capitol?
No, I was close to signing with Sony / Interscope.
Interscope, okay.
Yes, and my manager was a former record label head of Giant back in the day. It was like a 90s label. They signed Color Me Bad. Her name was Cassandra Mills.
Okay.
So I actually didn't end up following through with signing a deal, because I ended up going on tour with Snoop Dogg as a dancer and left the whole artist career, but left deals on the table.
Got it. So she
nothing.
mentioned that story to me, and I want to say it was 2011, 2012, maybe 2013. And then we didn't go, but I still followed her on Instagram, and I still saw everything you did with all your classes and your career. And then we met in person again a few years later. But it was nor here nor there, just through mutual friends, and I was like, oh, she's not going to remember that conversation. But it was so vivid to me. And recently at our friend's house, I literally showed her the email, and I was like, look. And she was like, I don't remember, but that's crazy.
I feel like I've lived at least 5 different lives in this one life. It's wild.
I agree with that. And I always say that as women, we are literally superheroes, not only because we can give birth and bring life, but we go through so much, and, are taught, if we're Latinas or of a minority, to a lot of the times mute it and not show it. But in general, there's so much of what we have to be, It's like that Barbie quote of America Ferrera. I don't know if you've seen it, where she's like, if I'm fat, I'm too fat. If I'm too skinny, I must be anorexic. If I'm this, if I'm that, if
There's
I'm that.
a song out just like that right now from I think she's from a European artist, where she was like, the whole contrast, I'm perfect until I open my mouth, and then
yes. I'm too busy.
Yeah, same thing, same concept.
Yeah, that one. Yes. So it's like when I see you, I've seen you go through quite a bit of evolutions, whether it has been personal that you've spoken about, or I've seen it from afar and kind of put pieces together, or even you've showcased about whether you're doing a tour online, and you're touring for teaching your courses, your workshops. I remember you went out of the country a few times doing that, or you were doing your continuous, millennium times, or you got a new studio and all that things. So I just wanted to sit down here and kind of bring to Similarly Different who Brinn Nicole is, not only today, but who has she been, and how did you get to where you are today? Because I think that we have a lot of women And, you know, we had Denise in a past episode. We've had Melissa. We've had Leanne. And you guys have seen those episodes. I always think that a conversation is all about how the person shares it, and their experience through it can give a new person a new insight that maybe they didn't feel before.
For sure.
So let's go back to Brinn from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm here. I love this.
How did you start in entertainment?
I knew at a young age, I remember the age 6. That's the age that I knew I wanted to dance. That's when dance became available to me through my school, and I realized it's a very natural talent. Singing is not natural for me. Acting is not natural for me, but dance, 100% natural. First class already was like driven, motivated, felt that spark that you should feel, that obsession that you should feel when you really love something, to pursue it. If you're not obsessed, you won't keep going. And I felt that obsession with dance. I felt that quiet mind as well with dance. And I felt that outgoing part of me be able to come out when I dance. And I was shy when I was little. I was only an extrovert with my family and my close, like best friend, my one best friend. Other than that, I was an introvert, but dance brought me into my extrovert self. I know I wanted to sing and dance. I loved all the Disney stars and the Nickelodeon stars, and we grew up with the Britney and the J-Lo and the Janet and, you know, these icon performers. And I knew I wanted to be that, but the internet was not like an accessible thing. When I was 6, my mom did not know where to go for those things, and dance came with my school. So dance just became the thing that I just kept doing and doing and doing.
And after 6 years old, at what age would you say that you were like, okay, I'm going to take this serious?
When I transferred to a studio outside of school, which I transferred to a studio outside of school around 9-10.
Okay.
And then I was taking dance after school 3 to 4 days a week and doing recitals, you know, annually. And then in middle school, I had a friend, her name was Artemis, or is Artemis, and she knew, everyone in school knew I was the dancer. And she heard of Millennium. And she was like, it's this really amazing studio in North Hollywood. All the celebrities train there. I want to take you to a class. And she was like, my friend that was very well-to-do, she was like, I'll get us a limo and we'll show up. And I was like, that's a lot, but okay, you know. So we literally pulled up at Millennium in a limo to take our first dance class. And I was about 12. No, I was 12.
Who was the first recognizable face you saw at Millennium?
Choreographer-wise, Shane Sparks.
Okay, yes, I know.
Okay, but there wasn't like pop stars taking the class.
Yeah.
It was just like dancers and choreographers. And it was everything you see in the movies. Like, it was so incredible, the energy at that original Millennium Dance Complex. There was this room called the Dome. It was huge. And you walk in and you felt like you're in a special space. Like, you felt like you're in an industry dance room.
The way I'm like picturing it in my head is the way and the feeling that Center Stage gives me when I watch it.
The movie?
Yes.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
Like, I love Save the Last Dance, but Center Stage gives me that like studio and competition and technique feeling, you know? Like, so, okay. So
It was that, but that's more New York.
Yeah.
And this felt more like
urban.
LA.
Yeah.
It did. It felt more urban and LA though. So and they do have very different energies.
For sure.
I just remember being obsessed. That feeling of like, I need to go back here tomorrow and the next day. Went home to my mom, rant and raved, and said like, I became one of the strongest dancers at my other studio, but I was like one of the worst dancers at Millennium. And I was like, I need to be here. This is clearly where I need to be.
So fear never came into you in that moment. Instead, it pushed you to want to be better.
Oh, yeah.
Where do you think that came from?
I think through doing sports and knowing that the more you practice something through sports, the better you get. That understanding of rehearsal and practice to get prepared for a show. And then at that show day, you will be ready, is something that came from sports and from being a dancer.
Yeah. So the reason why I ask you this is because I actually got a DM last night from a girl, and she watches the podcast, and she said, how are you so confident? And, you know, the reality is I'm not always confident.
Right.
I go through a lot of, and I know that you're a very emotional person. You feel everything, which means if we feel everything high and intense, we also feel everything intense low.
It's matched.
And my response to her was, I'm not always confident, but I feel my most confident self when I lean with God, because I notice that when I start second guessing myself and I start not trusting, or I start believing the limiting beliefs or the little inner voice or the critiqueness from my inner self, which is the loudest than anybody else could tell me,
Right.
I feel anxiety, I feel anxiousness, I feel uncertainty. But when I lean on God specifically for myself, I start feeling more peace. So you say it comes from dance and all those times, but internally, more spiritually, where do you think your confidence stemmed from then and transitioned to now you as a woman? On this week's episode, we talk about different seasons we go through as women. I'm here to remind you that you can go after that dream career, start that business idea, expand your income and knowledge this year. National University is here to help, and I'm thankful for having them as a sponsor for Similarly Different. NU's programs are designed for people juggling multiple responsibilities. Their flexible 4 and 8 week online courses make pursuing your education. We all have different things that can be pulling us left and right. That doesn't mean that your dreams and goals need to be forgotten. Learn more about NU and their scholarship opportunities in the link in my bio. And now, back to the episode.
Oh, I love this transition because God is behind everything. And I couldn't relate to what you said more or agree more personally myself. I'm born culturally and religiously in Judaism.
Oh, okay.
But never with the tradition of it, just am it, just born into it blood-wise. But my mom always just raised me knowing the presence of God and angels in a non-religious aspect, just a spiritual aspect. And she did such a beautiful job with her spirituality, just seeing love and art in everything. Like if we walked by a tree, she'd be like, do you see that face in it? Like she just made me always see art in the world because she's an artist.
Right.
So I think growing up, I became very aware of my feelings and the cues they give, which now I know is called intuition. And I became very able to discern in my emotions between the zings of I am meant to be here and a feeling of danger or this doesn't feel good. And I felt enough of those zings even at a young age to know, like when I walked in Millennium, though I wasn't good and I came from feeling good where my ego could have kept growing, I felt the zing, that spark, that inflation, that motivation, that inspiration, it felt like growth is here, that very strong spark. And so, yes, it was me knowing what comes with dance and the journey of dance. If I'm the worst here with practice, I can get better and better and better. There's there's logic. And then there's the spiritual aspect where I felt the zing.
That's beautiful. And then what was your first job in the entertainment, whether it was dance or acting or background or whatever, that you were like, maybe I can make a living out of this?
So at Millennium, there was billboards with auditions. Like I'm telling you, old school. Like that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
I miss it. But there was literally a paper that said LA Spark Kids, like the Lakers. They have the Sparks for WNBA.
Okay.
I don't know if I feel like I haven't heard much about the WNBA. I don't know
that they
how
have
much
a
is
kids-
still going
yeah.
on. But I could be really absent-minded with that. But anyway, the Sparks was the female version of the Lakers. And they had instead of the Laker girls, they had the Spark Kids.
Okay.
So that was my first audition, pulled it off the tab, and I went. And all the kids from Millennium, it was like a real audition. It wasn't just like a for show audition. There's a lot of those. They want numbers just to get people to show out. But no, this was like a legit audition, and it was my first one. I had the confidence. I felt like I had wings behind me. I knew this job was mine. I was 14 at the time. I learned choreography from Chucky Klapau. Yeah, I think I'm pronouncing his name right, but he's became a Michael Jackson dancer, like a very respectable dancer. And he was choreographing it, picked up his choreo. I had the confidence that day. That day, it was on 100. And I felt it when I left. I was like, this is mine. There's no way this isn't mine. And I did get this audition. So this was my first dance job, was being a Sparks kid. And so we practiced at Staples Center, all of our shows, our performances were in the halftime shows of these games. So all my performances were at Staples Center. And I was doing it 3-4 times a week and rehearsing on the weekends. And I was getting paid for it. It was a paid job. So
And how long did you do that for?
I did it for a year because every year you have to re-audition and do it all over again. But after a year, I felt like I got what I really wanted to get from that. And that's when I transitioned into another dance team.
Okay.
That took me into artistry. And that's when I realized I wanted to become an artist, this other dance team.
Mm-hmm. And then when did you make the shift of wanting to become an artist and dancer and touring and all that stuff, and then saying, I want to choreograph?
Choreographing fell in my lap. I had dabbled in choreographing before I was given a class at Millennium. I was actually given a class at the studio where I just mentioned this other dance team. Mm-hmm. That dance team had their own studio. It's called The Rage.
Okay.
And what's funny is Melissa, her daughter London, goes there now. And my daughter Nala sometimes goes there too. So it's a studio that's still around, popping today. Mm-hmm. But when I first went there, they weren't what they are now, which is like a really thriving dance studio. They were a dance program before. And they were artist development programs where you were put in an age group of like 8 people in your age, and you were a dance group that recorded your own music, and you performed as like a performance artist group. But because it was performance art, you did the singing, the dancing, the writing, the recording. They like trained you.
Artist development.
Yeah. And that's where I realized that I didn't have to sing, because I was never a natural singer to this day. But because I was the strongest dancer in every group they put me in, they wanted to give me a vocal role, because without a vocal role, I couldn't be featured in the center as a dancer. And so they made me the rapper. So that's where I realized, oh, I can talk rap. And that's where I thought, okay, maybe I could do that. Maybe that could be how I vocally show up and become a performance artist.
And where do you feel that your adaptability came from? Because it seems like every time you were always open into the new journey, the new experience, even if it meant you being uncomfortable. You know? And I think as a dancer, a lot of the times you are taught to be very versatile in the different forms of dance that you're learning. I know that it was like a big thing that, you know, okay, you're strong in the jazz class, but you're not strong here. So go get strong there and take classes to become better there, you know?
Yeah.
But in this, it seemed like you always, even maybe before somebody would tell you, you kind of were analyzing yourself and would like shift yourself into adapt into different environments. Where do you think that came from?
Honestly, I feel like it's an innate wisdom that has traveled with me because of lifetimes before. I'm a big believer of that because I feel it in my bones. I know I'm not a baby soul.
Yeah.
I know the ropes of how things go, and I'm a big observer, and I like to think that I have the mind of like what an assistant should have, where you think 2 steps ahead. So if I'm in a room and I am picking something up the way that I am, but I see someone else picking it up stronger, my eye is on them and I'm seeing what they're doing and how they're doing it. So I'm not always just in my space. I'm also aware of my surroundings. And on top of that, it's God as well, like we talked about, because I can feel the difference between a positive pull and a negative pull. And I think every time I was somewhere, even if it was uncomfortable, if I felt that godly positive pull, I leaned all the way in.
Did you ever feel a negative pull in the entertainment industry that made you think about if you wanted to stay in it?
I never questioned staying in it, but I've definitely felt negative pulls.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never let it, I've felt too many godly positive pulls to ever let the negatives outshine.
Okay.
But
So you've always just like led with the pros and cons, and you've had more pros, thankfully, than cons for you to ever step away from it.
For sure. Yes.
And when you transitioned into being a mom, right, and you had your first daughter, what was that transition like when it came to what was going to be Brinn Nicole, the dancer and the choreographer and the dance teacher that, you know, had already a set schedule and you had maybe found a rhythm, and then out of nowhere it's like, wow, this is a blessing. Did you ever, not question, because that's not the word at all that I'm trying to find, but did you ever ask yourself, well, is Brinn Nicole, the name, going to have to quiet down in this? Or did you always know, I'm going to figure out some way how to do it?
With Nala, always thought, oh, everything's still going to exist, even better. I never thought, oh, I'm going to have to step away. Not with Nala. No, I was very driven, very career focused and that question and that mindset was not there. It was always, we're going to make it work. It'll work. It's going to work.
Yeah.
With my twins that I just had 6 months ago, definitely thought the move was to take a back seat and slow down and enjoy this time, because Jared, who I have my twins with, he's a provider and created a space where I thought maybe I can sit back and not hustle like I usually do and enjoy this. And there's a story and why that just did not work for me. But 2 different experiences, 2 different pregnancies.
And when you say that the second one has made you, like, that you came to that understanding of it, what do you think was the difference from the first experience to the second? Besides him being a provider, more in self, right? That the fear, because I always think about, I mean, I don't have kids.
Yeah.
So I think I'm so hustler, I'm so career focused that I always say when I have kids, I don't know actually how I'm going to be, because for many years I used to say, oh, I'm going to be able to do it. And then I've just seen so many of my friends experience it where they're like, you think you're going to keep doing that, but you're not. Or others where they're like, I literally can't wait to go outside and work because I feel like I've only just become now a mom and that's all my identity and there's so much more to me. So from Nala, experiencing Nala and having Nala and going through motherhood through that, and now the twins, how do you think, where was that shift and where was that change in dynamic and the way you thought that maybe things are going to be different this time around?
One thing I've learned through both of my experiences about myself and other women that are moms is whatever gave you light before you became a mom is still going to give you light even after you become a mom. And it's a very huge limited belief to think that you have to lose that light because you now expanded yourself in a new role.
Right.
Doesn't make sense. And if anything, it's so inspiring for your children to see their mother do what lights them up, especially if it's something that they could also pick up too, and it can enhance their life as well. The difference, though, in my relationships was extreme in the sense that it was a very 50-50 financially relationship in my marriage with Nala's dad. And I was just starting Pumpfidence, so my brand was growing. The momentum was like this, it's like it wasn't up here yet, it was like this. And I had already taught master classes with Pumpfidence in multiple countries at that time, and I was just tasting it. I was probably on my second year of Pumpfidence when I had Nala, so it was like get right back in was my mentality.
Right.
And also financially, I was growing my business, and Robert and I shared our lifestyle 50-50. So I didn't feel I had the opportunity or ability to be like, I'm going to sit back. It just wasn't even in the mindset.
Right. Okay.
And now at 34, I'm 35, just turned 35, but at 34 is when I got pregnant. I definitely was like, maybe I will. It was like an offered idea in my head and in my relationship of like, maybe I will sit back and enjoy this and just be a mom and do the household things and take care of the home, hold it down at the home.
Did the fear ever kick in of like, if I step back though, am I going to lose everything I built that brought me happiness?
For sure. I did feel that. I also felt a lot of purpose in my relationship though, and it would confuse me because I thought, maybe what I felt before is what I felt before. And maybe I need to make room for new purpose to come through. Let me try that. Did it. Did not like how that felt. So it was a lot of like trying new things in this pregnancy and after.
Yeah, and I think as women, we're forever evolving, we're forever transitioning, not only in our age, but also in our spirituality and our experiences, right? So like you said, your first relationship had its own dynamic, its own look, its own feel. I think that sometimes as women, we have this, I say women and I say really myself, like we have this idea of what life is supposed to be or what it's supposed to look like. And we forget that whatever we're going to be 5 years from now, we don't even have any idea of what that's going to be because so many things can happen. So many things can be put into place. And the version of ourselves that we're going to be in 5 years could be so far from our own idea because we haven't experienced whatever's going to come thus far. And in this transition now with the 2 babies, do you feel like you've dealt with more of trying to give yourself grace or trying to prove to yourself of who you are today?
Both.
Okay.
Both. I think them both existing has been healthy for me, but it's been a dance. It's been a caring to prove myself to my community and to women that we can do it. We can come right back, and I'm still here. And that didn't feel good. So again, just trying things, realized I don't need to prove myself to anyone else. I've established myself.
But I think that's also a very honest feeling. And I think that whoever is listening or watching this can really resonate with that, because nobody would say that out loud. You know, people will maybe like, I'm giving myself grace through it. But it's like, you're giving yourself grace through it because you're not admitting that you're beating yourself up of wanting to set up to the same potential that you were at when you weren't taking care of 2 lives.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that that's so real in the sense of, in that moment that you were in, you had to be like, okay, what is really my reality right now? And in my reality, I don't need to beat myself up, but it doesn't take away from everything I've built thus far.
Right.
Because society, social media, content, people's accolades will make us question our own value and our own stature and where we actually stand. So how have you been able to now shift that?
It's been a transition, my demographic, because when I first started Pumpfidence, I was a working choreographer, a working dancer, and a teacher that pros wanted to train with, because I was able to put them on jobs. I was choreographing for Snoop Dogg in different ways, and for Pitbull sometimes, and for Dancing with the Stars, assisting the head choreographer, Mandy Moore. Like, I had a lot of flow coming in, and I was a up-and-coming choreographer at my agency who was getting like a lot of these gigs that these top, like Fatima Robinson, they didn't want these things, so they were like coming to me, and my demographic was pros. Half my room was like iconic pro dancers that are still pro, going hard today. Coming back into Pumpfidence after Nala, I did not work in the industry as much, because industry work, I think I started manifesting consistency in a schedule, and industry work can be very spontaneous.
Yeah.
And I was manifesting stability. And so I got my class at Millennium Monday, Wednesday, my class at Playground on Friday. I had my privates on these days. I had my stability. And let me tell you, I made 6 figures and beyond, being a choreographer and a teacher, building this business with stability. And it became incredible. I loved this feeling. So I have no regrets with that. But I had to also accept that that means I'm going to lose my demographic of pro dancers, because pro dancers want to go where they can get work. Makes complete sense. It's how the funnel is. If you can't book them on something, then they're going to go to the class where the choreographer can. And so the transition that I had to accept coming back into Pumpfidence, not necessarily working in the industry, but still having so much to offer, is accepting that my demographic is going to look different, but that doesn't make me less than. My demographic might not have half as many professional dancers in my room, but I have incredible women in my room. I have moms, I have people that work 9 to 5s that want this as their passion and are actually getting good with consistency. And I have had to shift my way of valuing my room, which is no longer valued on how many pro dancers are in there, and is now valued on the quality over quantity, that I'm making a difference in the women's lives that need this space as much as I do. So I had to shift that.
I feel like the shift also basically mirrored your life.
Yeah, exactly.
It went from, you know, you working in all these things, but also now you being a mom of 3 and going through that transition and, you know, rediscovering yourself and redefining your brand and self and who you want to be. Your community kind of switched with that, but is also feeding what you may be working through right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And where do you see your brand now going? Do you want to go back to the traveling? Do you want to go back to, you know, the pros? Or do you feel like this is where you need to build it with like the more regular type of consumer?
So I have a lot of different sparks that I feel that I'm pouring into, and I'm using God as my bestie to talk it all out with. I have felt that there is a female artist out there waiting for me as much as I'm waiting for her. I have felt this relationship that hasn't manifested physically yet, but is in the works. So I've been in a constant conversation with God about, I'm ready for her, send her to me, because I do want some hand creatively in the industry again. I love the industry.
Yeah.
I love it. There's dark and light to everything, and I choose to see the light in it because there is a lot of it. And I feel like there's an artist out there. Maybe I was never meant to be the artist with the mic, but I feel like I'm meant to be behind one, co-creating with her. So I feel like that's in the works. I'm excited for that already. Like it's already here because I know that that can give me some of that taste of pro dancers in my room again. I would like to put dancers on jobs. I get happy knowing I'm a funnel for dancers to get work. It's not just a thing on my shoulder that's like, I like how it looks. No, it feels good. I also love seeing my choreo on pro dancers. They fucking do it right, you know? So it's incredible to be able to put choreography on pro dancers. But I also realized I feel so fulfilled being the consistent day that a mom gets to have her time, that she was a former dancer, she always wanted to dance, and this is where she feels her sexy, this is where she commits, this is where she can count on getting her babysitter or having her partner or whoever watch the kids, so this is her time. I realized I don't have to pick. I don't have to be just industry. I don't have to be just mom. I don't have to be just having a successful class to whoever. Like it can be a little bit of all. Because I feel a spark still for it all.
And I think at this point in time, it's not that you lived so many lives and you left them. You carried a part of them to the next life every time.
For sure.
And that's who you are today. And without carrying a little bit of pieces from all those lives, you can't be fully you today.
Completely, yeah. 100%.
I love that. And now with postpartum, how was having Nala in comparison to the twins? Obviously, girl, you're shooting two of those out. That in itself is a lot different.
I feel like spiritually, I have a spiritual foundation. Present day, when with Nala, I didn't. I've always been spiritual by nature. Again, my upbringing, it was there, it was around, but I didn't actively do inner work. I hadn't done therapy. I hadn't done spiritual healing sessions consistently and really opened up my energetic practice with myself. So I really suffered after Nala because I had so many narratives going on in my head that I did not know how to sort through. My husband at the time, we were not doing good because neither of us were doing therapy work to know how to sort through what we were going through.
Be aware of it.
Yeah, and when I was coming back into Pumpfidence after Nala, my two assistants that I had built up and that were by my side from the beginning of Pumpfidence, Leah Janelle and Marissa Hart, they wanted to branch off and become their own heels teachers now. I had given them my class to teach while I was pregnant at the very end and in my few months postpartum with Nala, and it gave them that taste of being a heels teacher. They got to sub my slot at Millennium, and I had to vouch for them to be able to be subs because at the time you could not teach at Millennium if you were not highly credible, and they weren't yet. So I was like, trust, they're good. When I came back after Nala, they didn't want to assist me anymore. So I felt very abandoned also because they were my wings. They made class fun. And I poured all my energy into my building them more than the variety within my room, which was a huge, pain turned into beauty because when they went off to become their own heels teachers now, which both of them are extremely successful to this day as heels teachers, I realized I looked around in my room and I didn't have a community. Maybe dancers felt they did with me, but I didn't see a community in them because my community was in my two assistants.
Got it. All your trust and strength and security.
Yeah.
You put in them.
Yeah. After every class, I would say bye to everybody, but then we would go out and eat. And it was me and them.
Yeah.
Them leaving made me realize I need to put all of my energy into every dancer in my room. That was the door that they gave me was, I need to build my community in my community, not in one person or in two people.
And do you feel like you've been able to do it now?
It's completely transitioned. Yes. I now view every single student from the person that's up front killing it, confident, to the one all the way in the corner that only gets a couple of the moves in a combo. I view them to the same degree of value. I talk to everyone, try my best to get to know their names. It's hard when there's a line telling you their name and then you don't see them again until a week later or something.
Right.
But everyone fuck a name, spiritually as a person, I see them.
Yeah.
Everyone is seen now. and I don't take one person in my room for granted.
That's so beautiful because it, like you said, it taught you something and it helped you be able to shift it, to be able to move forward with it. Now, when it comes to Brinn, the human, right? Not the choreographer, not the wife, not the partner, not the mom.
Yeah.
What is something you feel you need to work on that this pregnancy has shown you?
The pregnancy has shown me.
That you're still like, I'm working through this.
I had an answer until you made it specific to the pregnancy.
Okay, so
Okay,
what is something that right
just in
now,
general,
yeah,
the
that you
human.
feel the human,
Okay.
you're still working
Because
through?
I was getting real deep. I was like, the pregnancy, not so much, but I really noticed that I have never prioritized just fun in my life. I've been such a workhorse. I've been such a dream chaser and a goal getter and go getter. And I've also been in relationship after relationship after relationship. So the two things that Brinn, the human, the woman, knows for sure right now is that I care to do things in life that are just for fun.
Yeah.
Because there's so much purpose and value in that. It doesn't have to bring you the value of money for it to be valuable. That's also a new revelation. And also to date myself right now.
Good, and that's fun.
Yeah.
I can relate to the first part of that because for me, I am such a workaholic and I'm a very passionate person. And I want to, if I'm going to do something, I want to do it with excellence. I want to be very meticulous with it and I want to give it my full on. But what I realize is that for me to be a true creative, I have to have experiences. And the experiences can't always be from attending events.
Right.
From even attending birthdays of friends and
Yeah.
always saying yes and always showing up because I always show up.
Yeah.
But in the always showing up, I burn out because not all the things I'm showing up for are actually filling me up. And in my vision board, I do a vision board every year. And my vision board, I wrote that I want to make more time for fun. And whether that's saying yes to a trip out of the fear of, well, what if an audition comes and I'm,
Right.
or like a job, a brand deal comes and I'm out of the country, I'm out of town. So,
Yeah.
you know, because I've worked hard enough to set myself up to know that people know my value.
Yeah.
And I think it stems from as well of really sitting and knowing your value because for a long time, I think for myself, and I don't know if you can relate to this, and if you can't, let me know, but
Yeah.
a long time for myself, people again would say things like, you're so confident, you're so self-assured, you jump and you take that leap. But it was more because of I have no other option. This is what my brain is like functioned to do.
Right.
But I'm tired.
Yeah.
I haven't gone out with a friend that isn't like, oh, I have this event, you want to just come with me? But it's
Right.
still work mode.
Right.
I haven't gone and visited my family for a holiday or for the birthdays because I'm like, I can't because what if I miss this work opportunity over here in LA? And I was like, I'm not feeling myself. I'm showing up and I'm feeling myself to pour to others. But like, what does Yanina, the soul, want? Yanina wants to just sit on a bench and look at greenery if she happens to get the chance to go to Oklahoma and visit her best friend for 2 days. You know, Yanina wants the chance to be able to take a trip because it's her friend's birthday and it so happened that she was able to on miles and, you know, not think about it. Or she has the money in her bank account
Right.
and use it to enjoy yourself.
Exactly.
Because you're going to end up using it for Starbucks, for this, for that, for
Right.
that is in your vicinity. But if you just didn't do that and you went on the trip, it would have been the same exact that you would have ended up spending. And I think that for me, it was really scary to tap into that. But I've also noticed that in just these last 3 months or 2 months, it's brought me so much more peace. And I thought it was going to make me fearful of the future. And instead, I think it's made me more secure in self. And you have value. And you still have purpose. And you're still going to work your butt off to create this podcast, to do the brand deal when it comes. But you still have time to be a human. And I'm not a mom. But I've always wondered how with the added layer of mom there's a chance for, you know, them, for the human to be able to do that, because I think it's so important. And I think it's a lot of things that my mom friends battle with, being like, do I even have a slice left to add the human portion of myself in there right now? But it's so important.
I have found in this pregnancy, with my spiritual awareness that has been founded and grown throughout it, that I have created the time and the space to experience those things because I don't carry limited beliefs that I can't. And so I think so many, not just moms, but human beings carry around a belief system that starts with like a seed and spreads out like a tree that has little branches of these like subtle or large limited beliefs that create their experience exactly as it is. So I could tell you all day, I have time for my twins, for Nala, for my career, for this, for that. And it could piss someone else off because they're like, she must have a nanny, or they can't understand it.
Yeah.
I don't have extra help. I am the help. When my kids are with me, I don't have a nanny. I don't have another person with me unless it's Jared. So that, just to debunk that, but it's everyone's reality is by design. And so like even as simple as with my twins, when I knew I was having twins, the last narrative I wanted to believe or belief I wanted to hold is that it's going to be double the work. Fuck no. Everyone wants to say that to me. It must be double the work. And I'm like, it's not for me. It's your reality. For me, it's easier. Somehow, 2 is easier than 1. That's my reality. That's my belief. That's my choice. And it's been that. But it's all because I chose it.
Yeah. You changed your narrative. You changed your mindset. And have you read any books or any talks for anybody that's watching that they're like, okay, well, that's how she thinks. And like, I don't think that way. So how can I change my thinking? How can I, where can I go for guidance to try to start thinking that way, because maybe my natural thoughts don't go there. I would love to.
Yes.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
But I don't, mine don't go there.
Understood.
Yeah.
So I think the first speaker, spiritual healer, and information that I heard of this nature was from Abraham Hicks, very well known. Abraham Hicks is a spirit that is channeled through Esther. No, I'm sorry, not Abraham Hicks. Abraham is channeled through Esther Hicks.
Okay.
A woman who is a human that decided to become a channel, and she channels the spirit of Abraham. So when she preaches her messages and shares her insights, it's not her, it's Abraham. It's spirit talking. And everything that Abraham has said is of that nature. It's all the spiritual teachings that every spiritual healer present day is just carrying through.
And where can they find that?
On YouTube.
Okay.
Or books.
Okay.
It's called Esther and Jerry Hicks have a book called The Teachings of Abraham.
Okay.
Law of Attraction, The Teachings of Abraham. There's a book. It's so good. So there's that. And then they have a podcast as well.
Oh, okay.
And there's so many YouTube videos.
Okay.
So many.
Do you think that's what helped you the most to be able to reshift your thinking and your process?
Definitely seeds, all the seeds. But information is always seeds until you water and do your own open-filled inner work with. So yes, they were a bunch of seeds, 100%. Then I would have some spiritual healing sessions with physical people, and that further deepened and watered my seeds. Then I continued my relationship with God, being open, like, help me understand this more. I love this concept of take the path of least resistance. Please show me all the areas I need to apply that more. Inviting God with a simple message that maybe I picked up from, there's a lot of spiritual leaders that preach take the path of least resistance. And the more I heard it, the more it resonated. But I also did not understand it at all when I first heard it. I'm like, what does that even mean? And so then I use those things and I invite God to do personal work with me. And I'm like, show me what that means even more. Give me like clear signs of where I am resisting that path and where I need to lean into the least resistance, and help me understand it deeper. So that is like doing the inner work with that information too, because there is a thing too of people that are so obsessed with getting spiritual information that they just do this retreat, read this book, do this, work with that person, and they just like hoard information. And then they don't feel like any of it's working.
And they also don't put it into practice because they just end up doing this workshop, and then they feel great for the first week afterwards, and then they go back into it. Yeah. And I always say, like, I know someone that was doing therapy and then they stopped, and then they got really into like these like YouTube videos of teachings and listening to things. And I remember they started talking like they were the expert in it. And I would just listen to them because I've done therapy on and off since I was 13, and I'm nowhere near an expert.
Right.
So I'm like, you doing this for 3 months, I was just like, it's like the high that you get.
Yeah.
But the high that you get has to go into practice.
Right.
And it has to go into practice when you're triggered.
Yeah,
because that's when I always tell people, you know that you're really learning to shift and mind control and mind move different patterns in your life when you're finally triggered and how
Right.
you're going to face it.
Exactly.
Because when you're going to react there, that's when it's important.
Yeah, of course.
When everything is great, everything is great.
Yeah.
But when it goes bad, and that's why there's also a quote that says, make sure that you're also praying to God and going to God when things are good, because a lot of the times you just go to God when things are bad.
Right.
Even non-religious people, what's the first thing you do when a plane's about to go down and you hear turbulence? Oh my God, you want to pray.
Right.
You know? So it's like, it's also understanding, like, maybe it's not God. Maybe it's Mother Nature. Maybe it's crystals. Maybe it's spirits. Maybe it's your grandmother that passed away. Whatever you spiritually feel the most inclined to be able to lean on, and you're asking for guidance, you have to ask for guidance through your happiness, through your PMS, through your good week out of the month that we have as women, you know? Like, you have to do that to be able to break these shackles of habits, patterns, trauma, response, reactions that we've gone through. And I think that ultimately, like, your awareness that has shown through your entire life as a teenager, as a mom, as a choreographer, as a business owner, as a partner, as being single, and all through that is so beautiful, because I think that you're shining light to the audience that's listening or watching that we're forever evolving. There's so many layers to us. You're going to be a different person in a few months, in a few years, and there's beauty in that. And the discovery of that is so beautiful. And it should be a journey. It shouldn't be a shackle. And I do hope that the people that were able to listen to this episode, and I hope that not only were they able to get tacks that they could play with, like little habits that they could, test out and see if it works for them,
sure.
that maybe they hadn't tried before, or maybe see things from a different perspective, now seeing your work ethic, your line, your history and work, your trial and error that you had as your own self experiences that you've been able to figure out on your own. And I think that at the end of the day, as women, I always say, whether you're a mom, whether you're not, you're a human first. And in the human, we have to give ourselves grace. We have to know that every journey that we embark is going to be a self-discovery, and not to be afraid of it, but more to dive into it, because the more we dive into it, we get to know ourselves in a whole different level.
And to have more fun with it too.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't all have to feel like work.
Yeah.
Inner work that actually pay. Like, sometimes if you have a bad relationship with a word, if it doesn't make you feel excited to do it, you have to change the verbiage.
Yeah.
And be like, I'm gonna have fun with this.
I always see it when I always think of things when I say it like with a picture in my head. So I think of it as like life should be you just hopping from pedal to pedal with fun. You're like, oh, a little imbalanced. This rock is kind of loose.
Yeah.
But still have fun when you're jumping into the next one. You're life is a forest. You're just jumping through the pedals. Some of them are going to be wobbly. Some of them are not. Some of them are going to give you stability. But there's joy through going through all of it, And I think when you see life that way, you realize that even when you've had shitty moments, even when you've had bad moments, they teach you so much.
Oh yeah, it's so important. They're yours.
Yeah.
They're still yours, and they're a part of how you alchemize that into whatever you're able to, and that makes you so unique. Otherwise, like, we're a bunch of walking accomplishments, but where's the story? Where's the journey? The journey is always what gets us.
Yeah.
It's always what hits the emotion. It's always what brings the connection. The other day, just quickly, I was at our girlfriend Natalie's Galentine's party, and this was fresh after Jared and I decided to transition in the way that we are. And this mom walked in. I didn't know she was mom, but Natalie was like, oh, come meet Brinn. Like, she was introducing me to her, saying like, she's a single mama as well, and she has a story. And I was like, oh, tell me yours. Like, when you have a story of highs and lows, you become so aware of how many other people have a story of highs and lows, and it makes you more interested in getting to know other people's journeys. We all have it, but I think we all don't embrace the highs and lows. We only want to embrace the highs because they're prettier, but the lows are actually so beautiful too, because pain can be beautiful if you can see it that way. I'm not saying every single thing can find beauty in it. I do believe it can turn into that if you allow it to. But anyway, her story of all that she experienced, something she shared with me that hit home was she felt that the trauma she was going through in her relationship when she was pregnant into her child's first year made her literally not remember her child's first year. And she was like, I get emotional every time I say that. I'm probably not gonna now. And then the emotion hit and she started crying. And I started crying because I relate to that with Nala's first year. I felt like I was going through so much as well that I hardly remember her first year. Core memories I do, but not like as much as I would like to.
Yeah.
And it was I hugged her in that moment. I'm an affectionate person, but not always with tears. Sometimes I like to respect people's space or whatnot, but I felt she needed this hug. And I hugged her and I just held her like compression hug for like a minute. And afterwards she just went, thank you. And it was one of those thank yous that like you can only say to someone that has been there too. So that's also the beauty that comes after a painful experience. Maybe you have no idea how you could see something painful, beautiful, but then you share that story with someone who experienced the same kind of pain, and the bond that you now have in relatability, that's beauty that comes after a pain.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. And I think that there is more that we can be tough on ourselves about of our darkness. But when we realize that when spoken in the right place, in the right time, with the right people, you realize that the darkness actually has a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
And you're not as alone as you feel in your sentiment, in your feeling, and even in experiences that you've had. And I think that that's why it's so important for women to speak up, because a lot of the times we talk about how successful we are. We talk about like, we're doing this, we're doing that, we look beautiful, we do this, and that's all great. And I love it. But that's why even when I got that DM asking, how are you so confident? I was like, let me tell you something real quick.
Yeah.
I love it. And I love that you see it.
Yeah.
But I don't want you to admire it, and I don't want you to idolize it, because it's not reality.
Yeah.
And that's why even when I do the podcast, I've talked about myself first and foremost of things I've gone through, because I need people to truly understand that if you're going to admire someone, I admire them also for their darkness, because we all have it. And it's never going to go away.
Yeah.
In the different stages of our 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, however long we live, different seasons, it's always going to come. It's just about how do we process through it. And I think you're doing a beautiful job in yours. So I'm so excited to see where you take Brinn Nicole, where you take Pumpidence, where the babies grow up to be and do. And I just want to say thank you for not only being such an open book and an open spirit here, but also just sharing and being always your present self. One thing I can always say about you is that anytime I've seen you, I'm just like, she's being herself. She's being herself.
That's the best compliment.
Yeah.
That's the best compliment. I strive for that.
I love that. Well,
So,
you always
thank
have
you.
very warm energy. You're always showcasing yourself. You're a kick-ass sexy dancer, but you're also a very soft and warm hug.
I love that.
So I hope that...
Oh, I'll carry those compliments with me all year.
Yes.
Thank you, babe. And vice versa. I'm so glad that you took the initiative to make this podcast, because talking through conversation is such a gateway for portals, and you never know who's it gonna reach. So appreciate you having me here in this space, allowing me to share a story that hopefully impacted listeners, because it's a part of our service and it feels good.
Yes. And if you guys ever want to take a Pumpidence class, who knows? She might go on tour soon. So make sure to follow her on Brinn Nicole and check it out. And thank you so much. If you're in LA, she also has classes. She has one tonight in LA.
Yeah.
But I'm sure she's going to be posting about more of them. And until next time, this is the end of the episode. Bye.